I just recognize that there's only God here right now, animating and expressing magnificently through us as life itself. And so I'm grateful as we direct our consciousness towards remembering our divinity today in this spiritual practice called Unity San Jose. I'm just grateful for it all. I'm grateful for this community. I'm grateful for the wisdom and the knowledge and the insights and the music. And so it is. And Amy, I'm going to spotlight you. Warm Zoom welcome for Amy Steinberg.
Good evening. I've been looking forward to this all day. Get to hear one of my favorite speakers and be with one of my favorite communities. So when I saw this topic that was going to be spoken upon, I wanted to sing this song that I wrote with Janice Stanfield, who you may know, wonderful songwriter. What a blessing. It's called Grow On. Every entanglement and every knot, every twist and turn and every painful thought, the roots reach deep, wrapped up in history, and the truth we seek is a mystery. No need to hide or deny our scars. It takes what it takes to make us who we are. Grow on, grow on, grow deep like a seed unleashed, grow strong, grow on, grow on, grow up like a tree set free into the sun, grow on, grow on, grow on, grow on, grow on. That's a part you can sing with me. It's easy. Grow on, grow on, grow on, grow on. One more time. Grow on, grow on, grow on, grow on. You got it. Grow on, grow on, grow on. Look at the obstacles that you've overcome. Keep your heart steady like the beat of a drum. The courage inside you has shown you the way out of the darkness into the day. And now that you know what's true for you, only one thing for you to do. Grow on, grow on, grow deep like a seed unleashed, grow strong, grow on, grow on, grow up like a tree set free into the sun, grow on, grow on, grow on, grow on, grow on. You wanna grow on, grow on, grow on, grow on. You got it. Sing it with me one time. Come on. Grow on, grow on, grow on, grow on. Grow on, grow on, grow on. Outgrow on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Grow on, grow on. Grow deep like a seed unleashed. Grow strong. Grow on, grow on, grow up like a tree set free into the sun. Grow on, grow on, grow on. For you.
Thank you so much, Amy. I love that song. I don't think I've heard it before. I hope you please do that again. I'm the type that when I really love a song, I just play it over and over and over again. So I used to, as a music director in my former life, I used to always request those, artists to do the same songs over and over again. And it's like, I think I would be driving them crazy. So this came from actually from a Facebook page called Naive Art Extraordinaire. And I know that it's for artists that don't have any formal training. And I saw Amy Steinberg is out on that Facebook group. Do you remember Amy? And some of Amy's pictures are out there, of which I now own one that's on my wall. I will show a picture of that later. But this is a beautiful picture. I don't know who did this painting, but it reminds me of, let's just, imagine ourselves settled in our space and that we're surrounded by all the lights that you can see in the sky, representing all of the beneficial spirits and spirit guides, source energy, the God of our understanding, right in the center of it all. And that light is shining on all the houses, representing our community and the community of the world, and the flowers. And they can represent nature, or they can represent ancestral spirits, anything you want them to represent. And maybe that path, that golden path, is your path. And you're walking over to your sanctuary that you're going to sit in. I also note there's a little shape right above the moon, or the moon to the right. Just a little bit. Actually, this may be more just at 1 o'clock, if you will. And I don't know what that is, but it's beautiful. It's the light of your being, your highest self, maybe. So taking that mental picture inside, let's just close our eyes and still our breathing. Knowing that this beloved community of light is radiant within us. And that we're never, ever, ever alone. Never. And so in moments of meditation, we can call upon the radiant light of wisdom and peace and healing and abundance. Just invite that light to shine on us a little bit more in our awareness as we breathe gently. And I'm even thinking about Amy's song. It's gently playing in the background. I'm just thinking about whatever positive vibrations I want to bring into this sanctuary. And if you've ever seen a dog or a cat or any creature just be still in nature, know that even they know that this stillness feeds us, it feeds our soul. So let's just relax into this opportunity to just be perfectly still as we let any thoughts just drift away. And just only knowing the light as we go into the silence for a moment. And so let's invite that light, which is full and not empty. Let's just invite that light to resolve anything in our hearts and in our minds that needs resolution, in our hearts, in our minds, in our bodies. As we breathe. Standing up straighter, let's just take a deep, deep breath. Sitting up straighter. Just feel the energizing breath as we inhale and exhale. The sacred breath. Gently opening our eyes as we commune together. So I am going to find Don and Don, if you'll lead us in today's readings.
Today's reading is from Unity Daily Word, adapted by Reverend David. I remember times when I wanted something so badly, I was crushed when it didn't come to pass. But I did move on. Looking back, I can now appreciate how my relationship with Spirit carried me through. Grace was carrying me through. Little by little, I let go and let God. The sun rose on a new day. I found my footing and began again. Not just starting over, but wiser, more unshakable than I was before, carrying gratitude that I couldn't contain before. Please join me and say with me our opening affirmation. There is only one power and one presence active in the universe and in my life. God in everything and everyone. The one infinite spirit source of love, abundance, harmony, wholeness, intelligence, and joy is expressing as me.
Thank you so much, Don. Welcome, David Ault. We're so glad to have you here. Let's have a
Hello.
welcome for
I
you.
love the way you do that little Zoom shuffle. You're a
Yes.
master at Zoom shuffling. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me back. I want to echo what Amy said and just give thanks to this community. You're such a loving, welcoming presence. And so there's always a smile when I get a message from David asking me to come and be with you. I've been teaching a lot, and the subject of change continues to come up, particularly around a new year. And a little mantra that I have focused on time and time again over the last decade or so is simply the awareness that in order to grow, one must outgrow. You have to outgrow something. And in that outgrowth, there is the inevitability of a new space for that new thing to come. But without that, there's not a lot of room. And it doesn't mean that the things, the desires of our heart, what the affirmation and prayers we're talking about aren't there. It's just that we haven't reached this point, this critical point in our lives where the discontent is just a little too big to carry. We haven't reached that place where that crisis has brought us to our knees. I call it like the dulling space, the dulling time, where we're able to cope, where we can listen intellectually and smile and nod and go to all the things and write all the lessons and read all of the books, but it's not really filtering in quite yet. And I was thinking of a pivotal time in my life. It had to be the year 2000. And much like Amy's career, I used to sing and travel a lot. And when I say a lot, I think in my heyday, in my youth, there was something like maybe 33 weeks on the road. And it was something that was thrilling to me, and I loved it. And I got to have the privilege of not just being a ministerial student, but being in hundreds of New Thought churches and gleaning what I loved. Like, ooh, I like that. Ooh, I like that. And I had this whole kind of cauldron, this beautiful soup of creativity that I began to implement when I was leading churches. And I often thought I wished that other ministerial colleagues had the same privilege. So it meant a lot to me, and I loved the travel. And then, lo and behold, sort of around, I think, the end of 1999, the year 2000, I started to develop a cough. And as a singer will tell you, a cough is a little irritating. I don't know about Amy. I think Amy is the type of person that can wake up in a grog, open her mouth, and bluebirds fly out. For me, that was not so. I would get to this point where I would become a little neurotic, and I would get up early and I would jog. And whatever city or town I was in, I would get up and I would jog, and I would do all these vocal exercises in order to make sure that my voice was clear for service. And some of that was precipitated by those moments of cracking, like being in high altitudes. I'll never forget being in Albuquerque and not realizing that Albuquerque is also a mile high, just like Denver is. And all of a sudden, in the middle of a song, just my whole mouth was filled with wash rags and I just couldn't get any breath. And all of a sudden, the note didn't come out. And the congregation was so loving, and they said, "Oh my God, we love it when visitors come. We love to go to the symphony with traveling orchestras and watch the wind section turn blue because they have no idea that they're a mile above sea level." So things like that began to plant these little seeds of doubt in my mind about my capability. And so, in order to prevent that from ever happening again, I kept adding on and adding on and adding on to all these routines to bring some type of assurance that I would sing as perfectly as possible. And then this cough came, and there really wasn't any way to navigate around this cough because it kept sort of increasing, and I was waiting for it to wane, and it never quite did. And yet, my calendar's full. So all of a sudden now I'm doing what I'm loved, but I'm doing it with a fearful tendency inside of me because I'm noticing the cough, I'm looking at the calendar and I'm going, how many days do I have before I can get rid of this thing? And that's kind of became a lifestyle to the point where the cough increased and they couldn't find out what was wrong. And I will just jump into the story and say that over about a year and a half, that cough escalated to the point where I called it my life savings cough, because I went through everything that I had. If you were a healer and you had a chicken claw with a crystal on it, I probably came and saw you in the greater Los Angeles area because I was willing to do anything to eliminate this kind of fear and this experience. And I remember being in the Dallas Fort Worth airport, and it had not been a good trip. And I was feeling a little bit humiliated and sad and fearful. Like, what am I going to do? This is my life. So my whole identity was wrapped up in this. And I was walking through the airport, sort of like dead man walking. My head was hanging down. And I'll never forget this big illumined fluorescent sign. And it said, "Embrace change." And I would love to tell you that everything spiritual within me went, and I was just so relieved to read that sign. But in all honesty, it kind of pissed me off. I wanted to take my shoe off and throw it at that sign. And I was like, God, how much more change do you want me to embrace? What am I supposed to do? And I remember coming home from that trip thinking, I can't do this anymore. And thus began this sort of fretting and worry and brainstorming on trying to figure out how I was going to make a living, because the bills were still there and the cost was still there. But suddenly everything that was dependent upon making those things happen was not there. And I remember, and I still have this table. I have this big pine farm table. It's one of those really old ones. And I just absolutely love it. And I had bought it in Los Angeles. And it was probably the only furniture of value in my apartment. And I'm sitting at that farm table, and I have taken all of my bills and I have fanned them out over this farm table. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I remember trying to get quiet and trying to calm down. And I remember thinking, what are all the things and all the classes and all the exercises and suggestions that have been given to you? Because I had never really applied any of them, quite honestly. They were in that sort of territory of the dulling. There was just information coming in and information going out, but nothing had been tried. And all of a sudden, here I am in a space where the crisis is big, a space that you could describe as being pushed into this metaphoric corner, a space which I think is one of the most beautiful spaces to be in, because it is that space of surrender. It is the space where everything we have been clinging to and the prevention of change finally has some breathability. It's like you and I sort of opening our fist that we didn't even know was clenched. And all of a sudden, all of the suggestions and all of the readings, now I'm going back to them with fresh eyes and a willing heart. And I stumbled upon this exercise, this prosperity exercise, and it had said, write the checks for the bills, even if you don't have the money. And so that caught my attention. And I remember at the farm table scooping up all of my bills and putting them in a manila envelope and driving to Griffith Park in Los Angeles. And I lived very close to there. And I found some bench, some concrete stone picnic bench, and positioned myself there in the park. And it was a morning, and it was a nice morning. And I remember making this vow that I'm going to follow this instruction. I'm going to take out a bill out of the manila envelope, and I'm going to write the check for it. And I'm going to flow appreciation and gratitude and all that kind of stuff. And so I started, and I was failing just right out of the gate because I could not manufacture any prosperity or appreciation or gratitude. What was really bubbling under all of that kind of stuff was, this has got to work, this has got to work, this has got to work. So it was just this freneticism that was there. And I thought, well, this is a waste of time. And so I put everything down, and then the golden moment happened, and I just started to look around me. And I began to contemplate the leaves on the trees that were all through the park. And I remembered something about trying to count the grains of sand on the beach. So I thought, could you even begin to count the number of leaves on the trees? That's a representation of the abundant nature that is all around you. And I began to look at all of the grass and just the way in which it went on and on and on, not just flat, but then up the hillsides. And I thought, wow, thinking about all of the blades of grass. And there was none of the blades of grass were apologetic. They weren't saying, I know that you think I'm green, but you should have seen me last spring. I was really, really green then, which is kind of what me and my humanness would do when I would mess up. So I would try to qualify, or I would try to condition my audience to expect a flaw. The grass wasn't doing that. And then I began to focus on the birds that were singing. And it was interesting to change my attention to that particular form of creativity, because all of a sudden I could hear the multitude of birds just going, and not one bird flew up to me and said, thank you so much for appreciating my song. But I just want you to know that I'm not in great voice today, but I'm usually really, really good at singing. There was, again, no apology or qualification from the bird. The bird just sang. And something about all of the display of that unapologetic beauty really got me. And I finally found myself in a position of true surrender. And so I pulled that first bill back out and I just looked at it. I can't even tell you what it was for, but I swore that I would take as much time as possible to look at each thing that I was paying and to find a way to be appreciative of it, no matter what the service was, no matter who the contractor was or business or organization was, that I was not going to write the check. I was in control. I was not going to write the check until I could honestly, in full integrity, be grateful for the ability to thank them for that service. It took a while. It took about 3 hours sitting in Griffith Park. But I finally got through every single one of those bills. And I can tell you that the biggest benefit of all of it was the discipline of doing it, not by rote, not by fear, not by hoping, but by genuine appreciation. And therein lies the real crux of this story. And so when I was done, I put them all back in the envelope and I drove back to my place. And I was unlocking my door, and I kid you not, my phone was ringing. And I picked it up and I heard this woman's voice on the other end saying, is this David Ault? And I said, yes. And she said she was from Screen Actors Guild. And having been an actor, there had been several years where I had been involved in what are called waiver projects, where you would, in order to get some camera experience or to maybe do projects that your friends had written or were producing or filming, that you would sign these waivers, SAG union waivers, to freeze any assets that were required to pay you. And then if that project got picked up, if it got distribution, then you would get paid. And so I did quite a few of those, actually. And they were fun. And so she mentioned there is a waiver here of a project that has been unfrozen because it found distribution. And so I'm calling to verify your address because we're going to be sending out the residual fees. And I remember going, how much? And it was within $20 of the cumulative amount of bills that I had written in the park. And I remember standing in that kitchen in Los Angeles doing a little bit of a happy dance and just overcome, still coughing, still doing all that, but eking out this little happy dance. And for about 5 minutes. And then it was all of a sudden, it was like, yeah, but what about next month? And you start to see the way in which the mind does these little things that take something so victorious or so infinite in nature and make it finite. But I will say that that moment was a moment where I began to understand what it meant to outgrow in a way where my quest wasn't so much for information as it was application. That I wanted to realize if these spiritual principles that we're continuously studying would work for me. And it has been an evolution in not doing the principles because I want something, but leaning and free falling and surrendering into them because my only desire now at this stage of my life is I want to, as the Hindus stay in the room with God. I don't want to visit the room. And so that little moment was like visiting the room of God. Ooh, I got a taste of what manifestation feels like. And we have all had those. But the change now for me that feels so precious and so sacred is that change where I am willing to let go of identity and story and all of the things that I didn't even know I was attached to. But every time I say I'm willing to see what I'm attached to, it shows up. And so what that did for me, what that little event did for me was it set me off on a trajectory of letting go of singing for a while and getting a corporate job at Kaiser Permanente, which I was completely not trained for, which a friend hired me as a contractor, which paid me incredibly well, which taught me all kinds of business strategies and skills that I didn't even know I needed or would want to have, which put me in rooms where I became a project manager of project managers who came from all over the world and all different cultures. And I said, John, I don't know what I'm doing. And he goes, I know, but you know how to talk to people. And all of a sudden, I'm doing what I can to get this person from Ethiopia and this person from Somalia and this person from India and this person from this part of the world and this part of the world and this part of the world to come together, not just culturally, but business-wise in order to uplift whatever those departments and those IT departments were supposed to create. And it was amazing. And I didn't know I had the capability of doing that. That's another piece of information that I want to hear. I want you to hear. When you outgrow something and you go into the metaphoric corner and you surrender, what happens then is the peeling away of something that you or I didn't even know that we were capable of doing. It's like Eleanor Roosevelt saying, you must do the thing you think you cannot do. And what I always loved about that is the word must. You must do the thing you think you cannot do. Because then and only then do you and I uncover the infinite capabilities that we possess. And and can achieve, but we won't do that in that realm of dullness. And as a platform minister, and I'm sure that your Reverend David can attest, there is this thing inside of us that wants people to elevate from that place of dullness, that wants to become so hungry in their quest for being in the room with God, that they will take the things that they hear, they will look at the things that they've studied or read, and they will go on their personal journey of application and study in a way that the embodiment becomes real. And then there are those who don't. And you realize that you or I, in offering those things, have no control on the way in which it's received. But the intent is, will you? Will you and I not run away from all of the things that require us to outgrow? There is this incredible passage in the Psalms that says, deep calls unto deep. And so, what is the deep that is calling? What I have become more and more aware of is that the deep that is calling me is, as Ernest Holmes would describe God, the thing itself. I was always a little turned off by that because, you want God to be the big sweetie. We always want to put that personality on God, and that's great. But what Ernest Holmes was trying to tweak our minds to consider was the infinite nature of the creation, the creator. This kind of silly journey that we go in trying to define the indefinable. Shake it up a little bit and realize it is so far beyond our comprehension. Well, that's the deep that is calling to the deep. And what is it? Whose deep is it calling to? Yours and mine. And it's because it's a part of our inherent nature. The deep is a part of our inherent nature. And the thing about inherency is you can't prevent it because it's just there. The inherency of the deep is within you. Now, we can become unconscious of it, and we can expend a lot of energy to medicate and run away from it, or stay in that arena of dullness. But the deep will continue to call to the deep. Deep calls unto deep. Why? Because it is the inevitable homecoming of what you as a soul are designed for. So what I continue to learn to this day is that when things happen, when coughs occur, when certainties crumble, when all the things that I have wrapped my personal identity around are beginning to be peeled away, that there is an opportunity for me to get quiet and to look at the way in which the deep is demonstrating itself, not just in nature, but in every single facet of life. There's a lot to complain about. And when our focus is on those things to complain about, then you know this as well as I do. There's more things to describe in the realm of complaint. But when we do what Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, when he said, the hero's journey always begins with the call. The hero's journey always begins with the call. One way or another, a guide must come to say, look, you're in sleepy land. Wake, come on a trip. This is a direct quote from Joseph Campbell. The hero's journey always begins with the call. Deep calling unto deep. One way or another, he says, a guide must come to say, look, you're in sleepy land. Wake. So that guide in that little story that I share is the cough. The cough is the guide. The cough is the wisdom teacher. It says, wake, come on a trip. There is a whole aspect of your consciousness, your being, that's not been touched. I say that to you right now. There's a whole aspect of your consciousness, of your being, that has not been touched. And then the way he says it, he goes, and you're at home here? Like, you're good with this? I didn't know he was such a smart aleck. You're at home here? There's a question mark. You're okay with this, that there are aspects of your consciousness that you have not touched yet. And he said, well, there's not enough of you there. And so it starts. And what he's referring to is that hero's journey model, that quest, where all rolled up into that is all the beautiful dark nights of the soul and all of the identity crises and all the metaphoric coughs and all of the certainties that get stripped away from us. And what I tell students now is I said, when you look at the diagram, and I encourage you to go to Google and type in Joseph Campbell's hero's journey and look at that graph. And what I tell students all the time is that's not a one and done journey. Do you realize that the hero's journey is every day, every day? Every day we're going and we're embarking upon this loop of thought. And then I even thought today, let's get even more granular and realize that the hero's journey takes place from thought to thought. Did you ever read Pam Grout's book, E Squared, I believe? We did that one summer as a summer book club, and oh my God, the people just loved it because it had exercises that you could do every single week to test out, the power of energy and your ability to focus on that energy. And so it was a huge success. But I remember Pam was, I think, the first person I read that said there's something like 60,000 thoughts a day. Now, I don't know how they come up with that number. Donald, maybe you know how they came up with that number. I don't know how they came up with that number. What was somebody there with a little counter ticker going like this? But the fascinating thing is that those 60,000 thoughts, very few of them are new. They're regurgitated, carried over, story, excuse, wound, that just keep repeating in this loop over and over and over again. And you want to tell me that the call isn't calling unto the deep to you to stop and to begin to notice that you are not that thought. You are not that story. And here's how much you are loved. It will not cease its calling to you. And so there are things, disruptions, conscientious disruptions that come then and shake us, sometimes to our core. And when we are able, because we've now been in the room a little bit longer with that which we call God, we're able to not run away from them. We're able to not medicate ourselves from them. We're able to turn to them and see that that is the guide that is calling us to allow more of that deep to have its way, to stay in residency, to percolate and to live and to be real. And so that call is calling you. It is. It's not a respecter of persons, as we come to realize that the lawful nature of the call is the same for all. And that things like you walk in and the phone call and all of a sudden this check appears that's in the amount of what you were worried about, those don't become like special miracle things. Those are just ordinaries. Because suddenly there is a grounding, there is a deep rootedness that understands that everything that is needed is provided. And sometimes exactly when it's needed most. To grow, we must outgrow. Don't be afraid of the purposeful disruption. You know, it's the same as being broken open. People walk around thinking that they're broken, but you have to break the bread in order to feed. The soil has to break open in order to bloom. And the heart needs to be broken open in order to realize the expansion of that which is calling us to go into the deep. Blessings and love, everybody. Thank you.
Wow. Can you see me at all? Or hear me? Am I frozen?
You are frozen, but I can hear
Huh.
you.
Don't know why I'm frozen.
Can you hear me,
Let
Amy?
me try to get out and back in
Okay.
because I was so moved by that talk.
There you go.
David, you're so amazing. And I wrote you this song while you were talking. So this is something I like to do is it helps me to sort of process the information to try to make a song for you. We don't know what this is going to come out like, but we'll see what happens. This is for you, Reverend David Ault. The neon sign in the airport told me to embrace change. All the worry I could bear could not take away the pain. So much fear inside my heart with my voice fading away. Pushed into the corner where I needed to let go and say, look around at the leaves. The grass upon the hillside rising into eternity. So much beauty with no apology. I surrender to the gratitude that I can find in me, not by rote, not by fear. Take the time to find the blessing here. I let the love take over me to live in the prosperity. Let me stay in the room with God. Identity and story tell me it can be hard to change, and all the faith that I can have won't take away the pain, but the fear that lives inside my heart, it slowly fades away when I can let myself go and outgrow the old. Today look around at the leaves, the grass upon the hillside rising up into eternity. So much beauty with no apology. I surrender to the good that I can find in me, and not by rote, not by fear. Take the time to find the blessing here. No more running from the deep. That's what's calling me right here. Let me stay in the room with God. Let me hear the call. Let me take the journey and be the hero of my story. Let me stay in the room with God. Let me take the step today to know the truth of me from thought to thought. Let me stay in the room from thought to thought. stay in the room with God.
Thank you, Amy Steinberg. Thank you, David Ault. It's just now is our time of community prayer. And it's almost like the words don't serve anything right now in such a space right now. Just being in gratitude for all that's been said, all that's been heard. So grateful. So at this time, I'd like us to turn our attention to just in our minds. It's 2:40 in the morning, 2:54 in the morning in Gaza, 2:54 in the morning in Ukraine, 3:54 in the morning in Yemen. I'm just thinking about everything that is needed is provided, even though we may not understand it. I'm asking us to just go there in our consciousness for a moment. Everything that is needed is provided, even though we may not understand it. And then I'd like us to also keep some friends of our community in prayer right now. Don's dear friend, lifelong friend, Mac. I'd like us to visualize continued healing and strength for him, and to Lynn's dog, Fizzy. We're sending Fizzy a healing light, and we're sending Lynn our prayers for calm and resilience right now. And anyone else you'd like to bring and add into this prayer? I'm grateful for this healing. And so it is. I'm going to share my screen now. By the way, I'm always, whenever they say to Google something, here, let me just, that's the hero's journey. I won't explain it now, but if you're looking for it, that's kind of what it looks like. There's many different versions of it, but such a fun thing to meditate on. Say with me, in honoring the monthly tithes that come in that support and sustain Unity San Jose as we enter our 75th year. Say with me, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that we are, all that we have, all that we give, and all that we receive. Our generous love offerings do good work in our community and beyond, and they are returned to us, multiplied abundantly, just like in David's story, exactly like in David's story. So I'm going to spotlight you, Deanna, for some brief announcements.
So thank you, David. We so appreciate your sharing with us. So profound. And Amy, you're amazing that you wrote that song while he was talking. Thank you so much. We look forward to having each of you back another time. Next week, David will speak about radical self-acceptance. And our musician is Margot Leduc. And it sounds like David's topic will fit right in with what was being talked about today by David. Mark Mesidurian's event, the Angel Healing Experience, is right around the corner on Friday, February the 9th. To register, go to our website event page. Thank you. And join Reverend David at our midweek gathering this Wednesday at 7 on Zoom. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Deanna. I just have 3 quick slides to share. First of all, Jen took this picture right before service. This is the beautiful painting from Amy Steinberg that is now on my wall upstairs. And I just had to share that with you. Gosh, Amy, I'm lucky to have that. And this is our latest screenshot of our work in progress as we identify the values of Unity San Jose. So I input, it said there were 97 different words, and it put most of them into this word cloud, but it's just lovely when you see kind of the patterns that are emerging and just capturing all these. So I'll be sharing more as this continues. And if you would like to, it's not too late to email me. You can just reply to the newsletter and I'll get it. What word or words you think capture the values of Unity San Jose? And I'm talking about it here for the first time really quick. I'll just say that we, for the last at least 5 years, have not had an official member because the bylaws, the internal bylaws for Unity San Jose were rewritten at some point in such a way that it kind of made membership, it nullified membership. Okay, that's a fancy way of saying we need everyone to go to the membership page that's in the newsletter, even if you've been around a while. To become a member, it's a 10-minute process. And it basically means that you're deepening your commitment to Unity San Jose. There's no pledge that's required. This enables you to vote at the annual meeting. It gives us a membership that can make decisions at the annual meeting or any special meetings. If you decide not to become a member, that's fine too. If you have any questions, I'm available. Just reply to the newsletter and say, hey, David, I have some questions, and I'm happy to call you or chat with you on email about it. And the deadline for this is February 11th, so we can have members in time for our annual meeting. So I'm done with the announcements, and let's say our closing affirmation together. Then we're gonna have Amy do a closing song, and we'll end with a short social share out. So say with me, the light of God surrounds us. I am that light. The love of God enfolds us. I am that love. The power of God moves through us. I am that power. The grace of God expresses as us. I am that grace. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And Amy, I'm going to spotlight you again.
I think I'm feeling the love. Are you all feeling the love? We're going to sing something that we can all sing together. We know this one. It goes like this. We let the love wash over us. We let it be. Lyrics are there, so sing it with me. We let the love. We let the love wash over us. We let it be. How about joy? We let the joy wash over us. I see you singing. We let it be. Let's close with peace. We let the peace wash over us. We let it be.
Thank you, Amy Steinberg. Wonderful.
Deep calls unto deep. And so, You could think about that as the deep that understands that that solution doesn't become just a concept, but becomes a reality, is found in that nudge that you're feeling to begin to meditate. And I don't know if you have space in your place to do this or not, but pick a space or a chair or something that's not the chair that you watch TV in or not the chair that you eat in, but it becomes your meditation space, so that every time you pass it, there is a call or a twinge of a recognition that that's your space. And you don't have to spend hours there, but you can go in little incremental times and just treat it as a breathing chair, so that those extensions gradually grow and grow and grow. But you said it. You're the one that said, I've been feeling like maybe I should meditate. That's the deep calling unto the deep of you. That's a perfect example of that.